phone. That's sort of the best I can do. But anyway, I'm hoping for a very short meeting, so maybe it won't matter so much. So there's really just two things that I had hoped to do today. One is to, I want to have a vote to recommend the resolution that I sent out to the whole board, following any discussion folks want to have. And then I just want to open it up to talk about what additional research or people we want to hear from would be. So with that, let me just turn straight to the resolution. Y'all got it? And let me just say, we've had lots and lots of back and forth on this. We've had lots of discussion. I think we know that we don't agree on anything. This was a real effort to sort of meet part way. It is for sure, it's a compromise. It's very clear about our concerns around bias. It names other issues that many on the board feel strongly about. It names some of the options for addressing these issues and the bias. It calls for continued research and discussion and public input. No one gets everything. The one change that I thought was in here and I realized wasn't is in the very last line. Instead of saying for a vote later this fall, it should say for a future vote, sort of giving us some freedom, not necessarily to do it right now if that's what we choose. So that's what I've got. So I'd like for us to vote on that. So before I ask for that vote, any comments, questions, discussions that anyone wants to put out? And John Paul, you'll have to call on people because I can't see a full screen on my phone.
Jessica?
Hi, Ruth. So thank you for the changes you made to the resolution. You did make quite a number of changes, and I appreciate that. I want to raise two things before letting you know that I would still vote no on this resolution. One thing is the data John Paul just shared with us about enrollment and the star rating. You note in your revisions that you asked for this data and that there is a correlation, and the data that we got does not show a correlation. It actually says sort of at the top of the document that the researcher, it says based on the R-square values for each of the 4 scatter plots, there seems to be little relationship between enrollment and star rating or star scores. So that's one concern I have with the revision. The second is I agree with you that we agree on the bias, and in other places there is much disagreement. The alternate text language I sent yesterday really stuck closely to that. We agree on the bias and there's more research to be done. My discomfort with this version of the resolution is that there's here that we do not agree on. And so I cannot vote yes because I do not agree. And so that's why I will vote no. It's nothing more than things are contained in here that I do not agree with, and thus I will not vote for. So I just want to call attention again to the fact that I tried to take the best stab at what I did really hear from you in the working session, which is that we agree on the issue of bias. And so my version really left it there. And that's where I stand. So thank you.
Thank you. I have not seen that research yet on the enrollment, so I would like to look at it. I have sort of done my own sort of Excel sheets along with someone who does Excel better than me, and it looks like there was a strong one. So we can revisit that, and if that's the case, we can pull that out later. Anyone else?
I don't see anyone looking right to speak.
So with that,
Ruth, can we just take 60 seconds? I'm just reviewing I just went back to review it. So 1 second.
Okay.
Also, Ruth, if you swipe on your phone, I think to the left, you should be able to get the Brady Bunch view.
To get the what?
To
I'll
get
tell
the
you,
grid
Alex,
view.
I'm so scared to touch my phone
Okay.
because I'm just going to lose whatever. I'm so scared of just
Okay,
losing
that's fine.
everything. So
No worries.
yeah, it was particularly touchy when I got on. I have no idea why I could not get on. I've had various issues, but never that particular one. So since I can't see, John Paul, could you just tell me who is on?
Sure. So Emily, Jessica, Marcus, and Zachary are here for the board members, and Alex, I, and Rachel, our policy fellow, are on for staff.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody.
What's up?
I can't see you, so, but hello.
Do you know what that word is meant to be?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
What?
Line 64, it appears a word is missing after, including, before, around.
School. On line 64,
Yes.
can you read the sentence?
It's a long blur, but there are potential options for addressing each of these problems. Then we go through what we heard, and then the line starts quality, comma, including around nurturing and challenging school climate, comma, teacher retention, diversity. Is the word there supposed to be indicators, including indicators around nurturing? Do you not
I'm
see?
not seeing where the missing word is. Sorry. So it reads, okay, increasing the weight of growth, semicolon. Okay. Adding, deleting indicators to reflect a broader view of quality, including around nurturing and challenging school climate, teacher retention, diversity,
See,
and
it's got it. It's connected to that. Okay. Got it. Okay.
All right, everybody ready? So I'm just going to say, put hand, if you're for recommending this to the board to vote for it next Wednesday, just from the committee, put up your hand.
And to be clear, yeah.
To be clear.
So we're punting this to the board to take a vote on, and this we're saying that we as a committee agree that there's bias. We've heard these things, and we are recommending that there is public input.
Well, we are recommending that the board adopt this resolution. And what this resolution does is, one, state our belief that the current rating has systematic bias in it. We are saying that there are other issues that have been raised that a number of us think are problems. and we name them, or concerns. We name possible options for addressing both the bias issue and these other issues without stating which one we choose. And we state that we want to do further discussion and research and get public input. That's what we're doing. So we're voting for, we're saying.
I get that, but I guess, let's say we vote on it. We're saying we recommend that the public weigh in on it.
Yes,
As well
especially
as
on the, especially on
OSSI.
the further parts of it, yeah. But
Got
with
it.
with this resolution, we are saying we think there is bias and we think it should be fixed, period. In addition, we're gonna do further work to possibly offer recommendations on how to fix that and some other things.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted to be super clear.
Okay. So I couldn't see, John Paul, I assume that the vote passed to recommend this to the board?
Yes, the vote was 4-1.
Okay, great. All right. So the next thing, and we may want to wait until we have the vote and sort of get to a next place, but I did want to open it up for discussion about where we want to focus next. I mean, it strikes me that there's more to learn on the school climate issue. There's more to learn on the issue of how to address the bias issue, and to work towards creating some additional indicators, and so and to hear more on how other places provide assistance. So I guess it's just, do people have some specific ideas about who or what we would want to hear from next? We don't have to do it today, but
Jessica?
I think the most important thing for us to hear from next is to hear from OSSI about whether or not the timeline for making changes to ESSA is still reasonable, including their plans for high school growth, given the changeover in superintendent. I think understanding whether we're still working with the same timeline or a different timeline will be important to making decisions about what we investigate and how we prioritize and strategize our work, given what we know of OSSI's plans.
okay. Anyone else?
I don't see any hands. Zachary, are you speaking? Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry. I'm just thinking back to the dashboard we reviewed. It could be helpful to see from other states or even other boards similar to ours, like what some of their considerations or design principles were and why they landed there. So I don't know if that's one person that may have experience across various states. I know Aaron showed a spreadsheet where he was comparing like the different subgroup weights. I think Ruth, you and I have talked at length about like growth versus proficiency. It could be helpful to hear why some experts, not generally like the ones we've heard, but connected to state agencies or state legislative bodies, have leaned one way or another.
I think just piggybacking on that we had a really short but interesting conversation with, I think he's the superintendent of Nebraska's school system. And I think it would be useful to talk to him again, and also just for all of us to look at their system and the direction they're going in, because they are also sort of looking at what they have and what, it's not set in stone right now. It's something that is their development. So I think they would be a good resource for us.
All right. Any others? All right. I think that all sounds good. I will work with John Paul and the staff to figure out when we bring such people in, whether it's the next committee meeting or, and that might be the best time to do it.
I mean, I would just throw this out there, Ruth. This isn't a realistic solution to inviting people to testify. But it could be powerful to hear from school communities. Now, I say that because I don't think principals, for instance, are going to feel safe enough to come out to say, I don't think the star rating adequately reflects my community because. But if there is some way, even if it's an anonymous survey of sorts, where we can get intel from how school leaders and or teachers may feel about it, I think that could be valuable.
Yeah, I think it does need to be anonymous, though. I'm just thinking about how we get to a place where we can make recommendations. And I'm wondering if we should, volunteer to take on some of the ideas that we heard from our experts, or ideas that you just all talked about, the dashboard, the changing weights, things like that, and kind of work together to draft something. You know what I mean? Like maybe pairs of us or 3 of us, or and then present it back to the committee, kind of like Zach and I are doing with Well-Rounded, where you just have 2 people working on it. That I just feel like we could maybe get more traction, get a little more done on it. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I've had sort of in my own notebook sort of been drawing things out. So I would appreciate that that opportunity. I don't want to nail anything down at this moment, but what I'm thinking based on what I'm hearing is that maybe at the next committee meeting, we hear folks on the dashboard idea, because I agree that's sort of been something that's been sort of kicking around, this idea of a report. And I would just say, because I know Jessica's not thrilled with the dashboard, is potentially, I don't know if this could work, but it has struck me that possibly a dashboard could include a number of different indicators, including a rating, right? So it's more not that you're getting rid of the rating, but that you're adding to it. So I just want to, I can't see Jessica's face, but I just wanted to say that. So that maybe we could think of doing that at the next committee meeting, along with possibly hearing from Aussie if they want to say something. And then we'll go from there. So that would put us in October.
Can I ask a question, just in terms of sort of defining? I think Ruth, what you said a second ago is really important in terms of what a dashboard means, and I think that's one of the things that we're not struggling with, but we're talking a lot about, is trying to figure out what that actually means. Does it mean just a different way of displaying the same information? Is it a different method? Like all of those things, I think, is part of that discussion that might help solidify what we might do as a recommendation, and how it can be used or viewed by different communities of people. And so, like, parents would be going to the dashboard or to the rating or whatever we're going to call it for different reasons and looking for different things than a researcher would. And so I think
I don't think of a dashboard as something for a researcher. I'll just say, I mean, data is for researchers. The dashboard is for the public. And I think most other people can chime in on this. I think for the most part, a dashboard is instead of a rating. I'm just opening up the possibility that maybe there's a middle ground. But I think most of what exists would be, and we've looked, the staff has put together a very good memo on some of this. So I think it's a matter of, going to some of those folks and getting some, having an opportunity to interact with them. I think that's sort of what Zach was saying, is to understand how they got there, what they get from it, what the pros and cons are. Is that right, Zach? Is that a fair?
He shook his head, yes.
Yeah. All right.
Jessica, you can go. You had your hand up first.
Okay, thanks, Emily. So I just want to say two things. One, you're right, Ruth. I'm not thrilled with the idea of a dashboard, but I worry that it gets perceived that it's about me. And it's not about me and what I want. I think there are multiple members of our board who aren't thrilled with the idea of a dashboard. I'm just the only one who's on the committee. And I think the second thing is there are few dashboards nationwide in ESSA plans. There are a few, but they are few when compared with 50 states and DC. And so that strikes me as a quandary. Why have more states not decided to go with this? Why has it not been identified as a best practice by the folks who review these sorts of systems? I don't know the answer to that, but it does strike me that it would put us in the minority. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe not. I would want to understand more about it. And right now, it just strikes me as the dashboards that are out there are often widely panned as being difficult for the public to understand. So if these are for public consumption, California's system was so badly reviewed when it came out as to be almost, impossible to understand for parents. The second thing I would say is that there's a dashboard that was just released in Massachusetts, and I'll find the Twitter chain and send it to you all. But Jack Schneider, who we heard from, was quite emphatically dissing this newly released thing in Massachusetts, a way in which you could cut the view of data on high schools. It allowed the user to rate and rank by which characteristics they cared about. And he took real issue with this as being sort of a misuse of the tool by the public, a tool that was badly designed because it would allow the public to rank the schools by things they cared about. And because those things are often biased indicators, like graduation rates, he felt that dashboard allowing the public to choose what they cared about perpetuated systems of bias. So just want to call out that if our issue that we agree on is the system is biased, the other objection I have to a dashboard is that the dashboard doesn't seem to fix that. That the bias really rests in indicators and the way in which indicators are statistically manipulated, like what we choose for a growth metric and how we make statistical adjustments for characteristics we know matter. So that's my second thing is I don't think a dashboard fixes the issues with bias that we've all raised as concerns. I'll find the Twitter thread from Jack Schneider and share it with folks.
And maybe we should have Jack Schneider back. I mean, we had him to talk about high school growth, but he knows a lot about these dashboards, both in Massachusetts and elsewhere. So that might be something as well. All right, final thoughts on this?
I had my hand up too, Ruth. I just wanted actually to add on to what Jessica said. I mean, it's just hearing Jessica talk about that makes me think that what I said before is actually probably a really good idea, which is that we need to talk out these different things we heard about, right? Like we need to maybe put forward some proposals of like, you know, if some of us think a dashboard is a good idea, we need to do more research on that and put forward why we think it's a good idea and what it might look like for our district. I would just say, I mean, a question I have, you know, Jessica, you bring up a good point about not many states using it. DC is unique in that we're also just a district, and I wonder if it would work better here for that reason. But it's a question, and I think that does feel like the next step to me is like to bring forward proposals on these various things we've heard from experts and to discuss them. In our context. I think that's the important thing. I know they were talking about it in our context, but for instance, the leading and lagging indicator discussion seems to be more general than it is specific to how it would look here. So that's all I want to say.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, Emily, I'm sorry to Emily, when I was saying it before, what I wanted to say was have the dashboards and then after that do exactly what you're talking about where we're coming up with these ideas. I didn't mean to ignore that idea, but I guess there's a question of order. And, you know, we could also, I mean, maybe the opposite order is right. And we can just in pairs or groups or individuals kind of just play out, try to create our own our own little dashboards, talk about it. And then maybe that creates the basis for how we invite people to come in November, I guess, to talk more about the dashboard. And then we would have been playing around with this stuff and maybe our questions would be better. So I'm really open to either way. Actually, now I'm inclined towards that way.
Yeah, and I was fine that you dismissed me, Ruth. I was just, as I was listening, kind of it reaffirmed what I was thinking before. So that's all.
Can I ask Emily a clarifying question? You mentioned this thing about leading versus lagging indicators, and you said, you know, they say, but it's not about what would work here. Can you just explain what you mean there?
I didn't have a chance to really dig into the memo that the staff did. I scanned it. But I think that there have been proposals for leading indicators for our that were concrete examples that would work for our schools. And I have to find them, but yeah, I think so. For instance, using teacher retention as a leading indicator of, you know, schools that are more likely to meet the needs of the students. But that is, you know, again, that's something I need to look at more. But I think the way that the memo frames it is, as I think, Jessica, you pointed this out, you know, all of our indicators are lagging right now because that's just the nature of the metric, right? And that therefore we can't have, it doesn't make sense. And I think there was something presented at some point that did make sense to me. And I was like, yeah, I just have to find it. So that's all.
Okay. I know that there's been a lot of talk about us using climate as a measure, and as sometimes happens after meetings, Empower Ed made a whole thread about how my comment was incorrect around the use of climate data in being sort of inappropriate for such a state accountability system. I went and found some of the research that I based my comment on, and I shared it on Twitter. And a few other researchers chimed in to share additional studies I did not have. So I will also just share that with this whole crew, that there are 4 or 5 studies that came up in that thread, a few that I put in, and then a few that others wrote to add, that suggest that climate data is extraordinarily important and matters a great deal at a school and district level, but is currently in the tools that are used largely considered dangerous for accountability purposes at the state level because of the way it rolls up the data and is untrue to the metric, to the tools, so that they are valid and reliable for the purposes for which they were intended, but that to use it at a state accountability level for accountability purposes would go beyond those intended purposes.
So can I, without going, I just want to say one thing on this. Obviously, researchers are in different places. There are researchers who think that using test scores and proficiency is inappropriate and inaccurate. So that's our role here, is that, you know, there's researchers on both sides of this stuff, as we've all recognized. There's trade-offs with all of this. There are trade-offs with climate, absolutely. There's trade-offs with proficiency rates and test scores. So
I just want to make sure we hear all the research is my point. I feel sometimes like we hear one side of the research more often, and I'm making sure that we hear a broad spectrum of it.
That's great. So pass it around, and if there's someone you want to have speak, you know, let me know as well, because we've tried to make sure that anybody who recommended somebody came in. All right. With that, again, I'm sorry, I'm at a disadvantage because I cannot see the whole group, but I know some people were trying to leave early, and I would like to end this unless there's more to say. Okay.
I'm good.
Done? All right. We adjourn. Thank you, everybody, and have a great. So Jessica gave us back 15 minutes this morning, and I'm giving you back an hour.
Wow.
So everybody should have a really productive day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.